Hi friends, Steve Yulberg here. Thanks for your patience. Some technical hiccups this morning that we're not here for my live Q&A session at the beginning of the day. So just what we have to do with sometimes. I want to thank Chris and everybody backstage who are working hard to make this work for us. In all the things at once, we just added in, instead of just fingers on the guitar, what we have added in is technical stuff. So we don't want to be thinking about those things. We just want to focus on what's going on here right now. But this song that we're going to spend our time developing today, I have an example of a song for us that comes from Difficult Time. This was the song we started working on last week when the feed got a little wonky and we had to postpone until this week. So it was the middle of the Civil War. Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, the American poet, had lost his wife tragically to fire. She died from burns she sustained a couple years before. And in the middle of the Civil War on Christmas Day, he had found out that his son had signed up to go to the war. And he was pretty despondent. And the bells started ringing on Christmas Day, and he just felt like the disconnect between his personal experience and his grief and his fear and anxiety and anger and frustration and the holiday just didn't match. And so he started penning this poem, and Jean-Baptiste Culkin was the one whose tune has endured with it. He was an organist, and he wrote this tune called Waltham for this poem, I Heard the Bells on Christmas Day. And we're going to use that as our example for what do we want to do when we're developing a fingerstyle exercise. So we have the first handout here, which has got, we're playing this in the key of C. And we just have the melody and the chords and the first set of lyrics. I heard the bells on Christmas Day, their old familiar carols play, and wild and sweet the words repeat of peace on earth, goodwill to men. And of course, this was written in the middle of the 1800s, and people were still trying to convince everybody that if you said men, you meant men and women. So today, this poem would probably be written differently. But if you just want to start getting it under your fingers, the chords we're going to use for developing the fingerstyle method are what we have across the top. And that's not a bad way to go anytime you're wanting to develop some kind of an arrangement. Just take a look at the chords we have. I heard the bells on Christmas Day. I heard the bells on Christmas Day, their old familiar carols play, and wild and sweet the words repeat of peace on earth, goodwill to men. So after we've looked at just the melody and the chords for strumming, we're going to take a look at what happens if we take these chords and just play a simple arpeggio while the melody is playing. Now earlier we have talked about making choices about the key we want to use in order for the song to lay nicely in the instrument. I've been playing the melody in the middle of the guitar, staying in the first position. And what we're going to do now is stay in the first position while we start moving through the first arpeggio. And what I'm going to do is make sure my thumb always hits the name of the chord at its lowest place. And my first, second, and third fingers are going to be in their home position. First finger's on the G string, second finger on the B string, third finger on the high E string. I heard the bells on Christmas Day, their old familiar carols play, and wild and sweet the words repeat, of peace on earth, goodwill to men. So that's just a nice even thing. The melody itself has some dotted quarter notes with 8 notes. But if I just play a steady pattern like this and sing the melody, or have someone else do this and I play the melody, that's another way to do it, just to get familiar with it. La 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 la. And that's just working through the first arpeggio. And it's good to do that so we can feel comfortable doing that. Everything's going in order right now as we work through the arpeggio. Now, what's difficult about trying to do the arpeggio and do the melody, let me demonstrate that again. Here's my arpeggio. I heard the bells on Christmas Day, their old familiar carols play, and wild and sweet the words repeat. There's too much going on. The melody isn't always on the name of the note, which is the bass note of the chord, and so I'm going to have to make some different decisions. So let's take a look at arpeggio 2 as a way of getting into this in a different way. My fingers were playing the arpeggios were in the way of the melody. So what if I do a top-down kind of thing? This is a second arpeggio. It's the same strings, but the fingers are going in a different order. Now they're doing 3-2-1 or E, G, E, B, G. I heard the bells on Christmas Day, their old familiar carols play, and wild and sweet the words repeat, of peace on earth, goodwill to all. Now that let me get a little form. Let me try to put that together with the melody and see if I can get a little more coordination. Now it's getting hard again. So once again, I've run into some barriers that are getting in the way. So we've tried this to get our fingers familiar using one arpeggio, using a second arpeggio. So now I want to move the melody up an octave, and let's look at the melody / fingerstyle arrangement. Because what I'm doing is now what I've done is move the melody from the lower octave, even though the singing melody stays on in the same register, the same octave. that it did for the other 3 pages we've looked at, and that's where I'm singing it. I'm actually playing the melody on the high octave. So you could take the page and use a highlighter and highlight in the high octave all the notes that are the melody. Let me play that whole thing together. Now I'm going to put the parts together. Now, you can see that in the top part, there's some of the arpeggio movement going on. In the bottom part, as we get moving on, we're starting to play some pinch chords a lot. And that's because there's so much going on in the melody, and the chord structure is so nice that I don't want to lose that. So, I heard, I've got to stretch my pinky to get that E flat. And then the D minor 7 chord is pretty easy. Now that's a C chord that's got a high G on it. Now if I just use my D shape at the 7th fret, I got a G chord. Same shape, just slide it down to 5. I've got an F chord. And now I'm playing the F shape, and it's giving me a G chord at the 3rd fret. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm taking these chord shapes and moving them in only with my right hand, playing the things I'm touching with my left. So there's G. If I move to the 5th fret, I've got F. If I come back 1, I've got E, E flat, D. Actually, there's D flat. If I go back 1, there's C, C sharp or D flat, D, D sharp or E flat, E, F, F sharp or G flat, G. So I'm taking advantage of the fact that I'm only going to be playing 3 notes at a time, and it's the ones I'm touching. So that gets me now this E minor chord. We may not be, I'm probably not used to playing the high G when you're playing an E minor. And then when it's but it is part of the chord. So you can see that I've got 3, 2, 1s and fingers underneath with thumbs. My thumb is playing at the same time as whatever that 3/2/1, that's a cluster. I'm playing all those strings. Now the thumb is just paired in this is of Peace on Earth, it's the G over B chord, the G/B. That chord is when we're telling ourselves we want to have a different bass note than what we expect. In the G chord, we expect to have a G. A G/ chord means I'm going to play a different note. It may or may not be a chord tone. In this case, it is. So then I go away from the chords, and now I'm playing this 10th arrangement where it's a parallel movement, C on the bass to E on the melody, D in the bass to F on the melody, G in the lowest note, it's not going to be the bass string, it's on a D string. The E and the G are a 10th apart, the F and the A are a 10th apart, and then I've got the G, B, F, and then my pinky drops down for this D. Here's the whole thing. I just think it's an elegant, elegant tune and chord structure. The words are also in the supplemental packet for you, so you can see his process as he's going through the lyric. And that's one of the things you might start as you think about, I'm going to hear Christmas bells first. So I might do something like this. I'm playing the E bar chord at the 7th, at the 8th fret. I might do that. Let's see, what else could I do that might be an interesting thing? Now what I'm doing here is I'm doing a false harmonic. I'm doing where I'm stopping the string where I would at the 3rd fret on the A string. Here I'm using my first finger at the 3rd above the 12th, so it's going to be 15. So it's possible to come up with a harmonic C. First finger's pointing right at the fret, the 3rd fret above 12, which is 12, 13, 14, 15 on the A string. And I'm using my thumb behind to pluck. So here's my bells at the beginning. So now I have that. I heard the bells on Christmas Day, their old familiar carols raise, and wild and sweet the words repeat of peace on earth, goodwill to all. Now, that gets us moving in the step we want to go. Now let's add the melody. And I can go back to doing my bell harmonics again. And I can create a whole arrangement out of starting with the chord acting as a bell, or using the harmonics to act like a bell, and then playing the melody by itself. I can sing it. I can play through the arpeggio and then go back and play the chord melody style. And now I've got a completed arrangement. I've got all the pieces I need. So let's just review the steps we went through to do this for this particular tune. Because what I'd like you to be able to do is transfer this process to other tunes. So first I picked the tune. I picked one that's beautiful, that I like. That's your first step. You want to pick something that you like because you're going to be playing a lot. And if you don't like it, that's going to be a real disincentive. Then I'm going to find out something about the tune. I'm going to see what key I want to do it in. I chose C. I like the range for my voice because I knew I was going to be singing it as well, and I liked that I could stay in the first position while playing the melody. However, when I went to add the chords, I realized that they were kind of in the way of some of the things I wanted to do. So then I thought, well, what if I do a different kind of pattern? And I got lost in the chords there because I liked them so much. And that's what can happen with you as you're trying to develop your arrangement, because you can lose the melody. And then I go on and try to play melodically by moving the melody from the lower octave where it started to the higher octave, and then pick some chord shapes that let me support that for a chord melody style. And then I got to a place where I didn't play all the chords, I just played 2 notes. I played that 10th movement. And when I say 10th, I meant the interval of a 10th. And that comes out very nicely. Now we have a question. When I pick with my thumb, it usually sounds a little dead. How do you keep your thumb sound bright? Well, here's a new thing for me. I have, in this quarantine time, I always tell you I don't have any nails, but I've got nails on 10 fingers now. That's just never happened. I'm taking some supplements as part of my dietary regimen, and that's helping them not break and crack. I'm also not just eating them off all the time, which I've done all my life. So what's different now is that I do have some nail to support my finger. When I didn't do that, and if you've ever looked at any of my fingerstyle lessons, you've seen I've used a couple of different kinds of picks. So in a lot of the jam play lessons, I'm using Alaska picks, because they were what was available to me at the time. Let me get these back on. I have not played with Alaska picks in a good long while. So they fit over your finger, and the top part kind of fits under your nail, so it's like an extension of your nail. It lets my fingers feel the strings a little bit. Because I can still feel, I'm not using the traditional ones that are covering my fingertips, so I can feel where I am on the string, but mostly what I'm doing is playing only with the picks in this case. But it gives me something on, I've got these nails on the first fingers, it gives my thumb to have something to go with it that helps. Now, I have not been using these picks. Let's see. Let's open this boy up. Oops. Well, when you put a staple through the bag, it makes it hard to open up. This is a sample of the Fred Kelly picks. There's get the ones I like here. These are my normal ones. There we go. Okay, so these Fred Kelly picks fit on your fingers I'm going to put you over there. I see that they give me one each for this sample pack. Whoops, that's not what I like. I like the speed pick. And I like a speed pick for my thumb. Which has got a little tab in it. And that's like, you know, Jim Deeming's lessons, other people's lessons. And they have the same principle. I can still feel the string with my fingertip underneath, but the Alaska picks would sometimes feel like they were going to pop off. And in fact, in the middle of playing, one of them might just be tipping like that, and then I'd completely miss. I also discovered that when I played with the Alaska picks and tried to put them on my thumb, I didn't always, the thumb is the one that would tip up the most and fall off. And so that's why I really liked, have gone to using the quick pick here. Now those were not my normal picks because they're at my other station. Hold on here, I'm going to reach through. With all of our technical things today, I had to move to a different location, which was a little bit of a shuffle. These all fit my fingers better. So putting all the pieces back together using finger picks is a way to get the clarity with your thumb if you're not able to grow a nail. So that's what I've done. I've also been able to grow the nail, for which I'm very grateful. But in the event that something happens to the nail, and this is my thumbnail on my right hand has got, you wouldn't be able to see it on the camera, but it's got a little defect in the middle that always tends to split. And I can see that it wants to do it again. So I just have to keep my focus on what I'm doing. So that, I hope that answers your question about how to get the tone of the right hand feeling similar across all the fingers. Now, there are people who also I'm not one who can tell you about, you know, fancy filing and stuff to get just the right angle and the right angle on your nail this way, because, well, nails are new to me. So I'm still figuring that stuff out. I am all of a sudden using emery boards and files because I've never had nails to do that with, and getting used to some of the things that I'd only read about as a theoretical construct before. Now you notice that once I developed the arrangement to be able to play high, I started adding some things. And this is what could happen if I'd want to not just I could now what I did there in that section, so I added full bar chords, and I'm using the E shape for C. In the 7th fret, I'm using the C shape, and at the 5th fret, I'm using the C shape, and then back to the E shape. And now I'm just answering everything with a drone on the G string. And that just fills it out and fleshes it out a little bit. Now I want to see if you have any more questions about the arranging process. If you have general questions about playing fingerstyle, melodic fingerstyle, please feel free to ask those as well. But I just want to see if there's anything about the arranging side of the process that you have questions about. Oh, I'm trying to move it to the key of G to see if that works. Okay, well then what I suggest, here's another question. I have a hard time getting a good finger roll going. What suggestions do I have for that? I would suggest going back to the second and third pages in the supplemental here, because what we have here are, I have a home position that I keep my fingers in. That's my go-to. My first finger plays the G string, my second finger plays the B, my ring finger plays the high E, and my thumb plays the other notes as needed. And just the arpeggio going up, I call it a fan sometimes. Your thumb can actually move between all the possible bass notes that go with this chord. I'm using a C chord. But I'm not. You can see my thumb may be moving, but the other fingers are playing all the same notes over and over again in succession. So as you can do that and do it with one chord, do it with no chords. It is still a chord, it's just not one we use very much. If you want to hear something different, just do bars across everything. Now the trick as you're doing that is to make sure that what you're playing on the bottom with your thumb is the name of the chord. For playing melodic fingerstyle, that's going to be a most helpful thing. So if I would know that this is a C, A, E, D, G, C. Kind of sets up an expectation. Just using the same pattern over and over again, that's a way to get the fingers comfortable playing in what would be a roll. That's going low to high. Now on page 2, we're jumping up and coming down. Now, I made a couple of shifts there, just more of experimentation than anything else. You may take what feels like a mind-numbing length of time in the exercises, but what we're doing is trying to get these fingers so comfortable we don't have to think about everything we're doing. That's the secret behind having a home position for me. If I know my fingers, if each finger is normally by default position going to play a particular string, then I don't have to think here's my finger, which string am I going to play? I don't have to think that. I just have to play the string because my finger will already automatically be there. Now there are some times when I'm going to move out of my home position and I'm going to use some other, I might move my hand all the way over so now my pinky's playing the high E and all the other fingers are playing all the strings in succession, which lets me get a 5-note chord because I've got 5 digits. Pretty cool. So that's what I would encourage you to do. It's going to take some time away from playing a tune, playing chords as an exercise to get whatever pattern you want to do. In my thumb builder exercises, I have lots of variations of what happens as the thumb moves back and forth, getting all the fingers to work in different combinations. So you can find them in my fingerstyle lessons. Now, again, I'll say this again. If you record yourself to give yourself a baseline, I just talked with somebody this morning who would have been frustrated with what looked like no progress until this student said, you know, I used to try and fail miserably to play jazz, for example. And now by being quarantined and not being able to play with the band, not being able to play out live, this student has spent a lot of time working on some jazz stuff and discovered, well, I may not be great, I'm better than I was, and I can play some music. And therefore having much more happy time. So if you have that baseline, you can compare it. So you may feel, you know, this isn't what I want, it's no good. You may be tempted to conclude it's no good. And hear Linda Ronstadt singing in your ear, you're no good, you're no good. But the truth may be something different. You might not be bad, and you might be better than where you were. So having that comparison is a good place to start. Okay, we've got another question that's unrelated to fingerstyle. Douglas says, I'm starting now on bluegrass. What advice would I give to correctly start on the acoustic guitar? Well, bluegrass is a different style of playing, and it uses a flat pick normally. There are some people who play in a bluegrass style using finger picks. Wayne Henderson is one of them, builder of amazing guitars in Virginia. I think I moved out of my position, sorry, Chris. For playing bluegrass, I think the important thing is using both sides of your pick, because you paid for both sides of the pick. And if you want, you're gonna, in bluegrass, there's a so being able to because you're going to be doing a lot of things that happen faster, you need to be able to use both sides of your pick. So alternate picking while you're doing what would normally be your warm-up exercises is a good way to get going. The other thing for bluegrass is the boom chuck strum. Now, what if we played, heard the bells on Christmas Day, they're all familiar carols playing, Mama's sweet mother, made of peace on earth. Could that work? Sure, it can work. It doesn't have the same feel that I was going for in my arrangement, but the reality is I could take anything that I already have written down, and if I play it in a boom chuck, excuse me, if I play it in a boom chuck style and play the melody, and then just play the melody with an alternate picking style that lets me get, even though it's a quarter note, I may hear more sounds of that particular pitch. It's going to get me in the bluegrass arena. So that's what I'd suggest for that. And the song could work. I like suggestions like that, though, because it takes me into a place I might not have already gone. And I really haven't heard this Christmas Carol in my head as a bluegrass tune, so I haven't tried it. But thanks for suggesting it, because now the door's open wider for some other ideas. Does fingerstyle work well with the capo? Why, surely it does. What the capo does, so I may, for example, I may want to play this, but it happens that C is not my key. Now here's the only trick. I can't, because I've kind of memorized how far up I go to the fretboard, and I'm looking at dots and things on my fretboard. I have to learn the new places things are. So that's the only difference. I can do the exact same things I did, the same shapes, I'm going to sound higher, but then when I have to make a big jump, I've got to figure out where that is. And the first time I went too high, and the second time I went too low. So then I just have to average them, right? Heard the bells on Christmas Day, their old familiar carols playing, round and sweet, the words repeat on peace on earth goodwill to all. That's just fun. We in our fingerstyle series, we're going to continue to develop some more tunes, and that's what we're moving to now. We've taken all these different pieces that we've been working on, and now we're applying them to tunes. So if you have some tunes that you want to start doing this with, I encourage you to start. Do the process I did here. Play the melody, play the chords, and then work out the arpeggios like we did for this one, and then see if you can play the melody inside the arpeggios. When I tried that, it turned out I couldn't. So I had to move outside of the first position and let the chords be that I'd worked on for the arpeggios work underneath my melody. So that's what I suggest you do. Chords, melody, see if you can do an arpeggio, see if you can do that, another arpeggio. Try to put the arpeggios together with your melody. If you're playing in this key, it didn't work very well. So then I had to move higher for my melody and use different voicings of the chords, different shapes of the chords. So it helped that I knew what would happen in a predictable way as I took my chord shapes up the neck. And then build in playing only certain numbers of strings. I may not get everything. I may not be able to get the whole D shape or the C shaped chord done in time, but I can get a 3-chord song done. So that's what I used as that particular strategy. Well, that's what I have for us today, and I look forward to seeing you next week, hopefully back with the usual everything and not the frantic getting things cobbled together for a conclusion. So I want to thank Chris and everybody who works backstage and Jam Play so hard to make these things possible, to bring me from my home to your home. And I hope that what we're bringing is something that helps you with your fingers as you develop the melodic fingerstyle of playing all the things at once. So for now, I'm going to sign off, and I'll see you next week.